My name is Jasmine Cole. 3 years ago I was still a well-known name in the event planning scene in Seattle, where every luxury wedding, high-end fundraiser or corporate conference carried at least a hint of my touch. I started from nothing, working unpaid jobs just to learn the ropes, and slowly built Aurora Events into one of the most sought-after brands in the Pacific Northwest. No one handed me an opportunity. I earned it with persistence, creativity, and the ability to make even the most difficult requests come to life. I met Nathaniel Whitmore for the first time at a fundraiser for the Seattle Children's Cancer Foundation that I was managing. He walked in wearing a perfectly tailored suit and carried the confidence of someone born into privilege. He was the kind of man you'd see in finance magazines, a Whitmore from a family whose business empire in shipping and real estate spanned over a century. But that day, he didn't look at me like I was just the help, the way many wealthy clients did. He looked directly at me and said, "You're the one behind all of this? I need your help planning my mother's upcoming anniversary party. If you impress her, my family won't go to anyone else again." From that one event, I gradually became a regular in the Whitmore circle. I planned the 65th birthday celebration of Judith Whitmore, Nathaniel's mother, a woman who was always impeccably dressed in pearls and carried an unreadable gaze. I thought I'd made a good impression, but all it took was a few polite comments for me to realize, no matter how successful I became, to her, I would never truly belong. "You did a wonderful job," she said at the party, placing a hand on my shoulder like I was part of the catering staff. "I've always admired women who pull themselves up. That American spirit is truly something." I brushed off the sting. Because I had fallen in love with Nathaniel. He didn't seem like his mother, or at least, I used to think so. He was intelligent, well-mannered, and seemed to want to shield me from those condescending stares. A year later, he proposed with a sapphire ring in Napa Valley in a vineyard soaked in golden sunlight. I said yes without hesitation, even though a faint unease lingered deep down, knowing I was entering a family that had never truly opened its doors to me. Our wedding took place at a historic estate in Carmel, California. Dreamlike and stunning, mostly because I had planned it myself. I didn't trust anyone else to understand how much the details mattered. Judith objected to almost everything. The menu wasn't classic enough. The guest list was missing a few important names. The flowers were too modern. Nathaniel tried to mediate, but I noticed he never actually said no to his mother. After the wedding, things slowly shifted. The Whitmores continued to hire my company for events, but they often interfered with every detail, doubting my expertise. Worse, they began to treat me like an accessory, not a daughter-in-law but a convenient asset for their lavish gatherings. "Jasmine has good taste," Judith would say to her friends. "Having her around is like having a personal planner, so handy." Nathaniel never once spoke up. When I voiced my frustration, he just shrugged. "You're being too sensitive. That's just how my mom is, don't take it personally." But I did take it personally. Because every word, every glance, every time I was excluded from a conversation at the dinner table, cut, like a quiet reminder that I didn't belong. And I began to understand that love isn't enough to earn acceptance. Especially in a family where pedigree trumps everything. Then one day, the chance to push back finally arrived. But that is the story of one unforgettable night in Florence. A night no one in the Whitmore family would ever forget. After the wedding, I moved in with Nathaniel to his luxurious penthouse overlooking Lake Union in downtown Seattle. At first I was stunned. Gleaming walnut floors, a classic oil painting perfectly hung above a marble fireplace. But within weeks, I realized the glamour couldn't cover the sense that I was a guest in my own home. The Whitmores never let me forget that, even as Nathaniel's wife, I was still an outsider. Every weekend, when the family gathered for lunch at Judith's estate in Medina, I felt like a background detail in the perfect family portrait they staged. They asked about my work, but not out of interest. An event for a furniture brand? That must be fun, huh? Nathaniel's sister Cassandra once said, her eyes gleaming with subtle mockery beneath a polished smile. And Judith, whenever she mentioned my job, did so like she was praising a child who'd won an elementary school art contest. Jasmine really has an eye for design. We're so lucky to have someone like her in the family. Who needs to hire a planner anymore? She repeated that line at every occasion. Birthdays, Thanksgiving, even ordinary dinners. I became the unofficial family planner, unpaid and unappreciated. Everything I did, choosing flowers, ordering food, even building a stage for a golden anniversary, was treated as expected. At first I tried to take it as a sign of trust. I told myself, if I'm patient, they'll come around. But slowly my patience was worn down by the lack of respect hidden behind polite smiles. What about Nathaniel? He still loved me in the way a well-mannered man would. Punctual, always remembered anniversaries, always got the right holiday gifts. But he never once stood up for me. When I said his mother was being unfair, he gently replied, "She's just a little old-fashioned. Don't let it get to you." One time, I spoke up when Judith deliberately changed the entire anniversary party plan I had spent a month preparing. I remember telling Nathaniel, "I feel disrespected. They don't see me as part of the family." He just sighed, got up from the dinner table and said, "You're making a big deal out of nothing." Cold, reasonable, detached. I started to feel like I was living two lives, one Jasmine, powerful and respected in the events world, the other small and invisible at family gatherings where I was both a guest and a server. Worse still, I began to question the little things. Late-night texts from Avery, Nathaniel's former assistant, that said only, "Are you still up?" and got deleted when I asked. Long, vague phone calls about investment projects I'd never heard of. Sudden business trips with no clear schedule. I'm not someone who jumps to conclusions, but when you've been overlooked for so long, you start to question even the things you used to trust. Then one day, while I was drafting a design for the Seattle Arts Preservation Society's spring fundraiser, I got a call from the Whitmore family's law office. They wanted me to sign some personal asset agreements to update things post-marriage. Nathaniel had never mentioned it. When I asked, he just smiled. "It's just paperwork. My family likes everything to be clear to avoid problems." But when I brought the documents to my own lawyer, he frowned. "If you sign this, you waive all financial rights, even in the event of divorce." This isn't an update, it's a defense. I sat silently in my car, watching the cherry blossoms just starting to bloom along Lake Union. I had tried. I had loved fully. I had endured more than I thought I could. But to them I was still temporary. Useful but never truly worthy of respect. I couldn't quite name the feeling I had in that moment. Anger, sadness, or just a quiet ache growing into resolve. But I knew that if the opportunity came, I wouldn't let it slip by. And strangely enough, it came sooner than I expected. Just a few weeks later, Judith asked me to plan her 70th birthday celebration in Florence. A full week of extravagance, every single family member invited. An offer I couldn't refuse. And also the last time they would see me as their free party planner. Florence welcomed me with soft sunlight and cobblestone streets glowing with spring. I'd been to Italy a few times before for work, but never with so many mixed emotions. This time, I wasn't just an event planner. I was the daughter-in-law behind Judith Whitmore's 70th birthday celebration. The same woman who had spent years subtly trying to push me out of her son's life. With 10 years of experience, I could plan a remarkable event in half the time it would take someone else. But this time, I didn't just want remarkable. I wanted perfection. From the private rooftop dinner at Villa Cora to the food tour through San Lorenzo Market, I mapped out every detail down to the minute. I used my company's name to place deposits on every service, from the private jet flying the whole family in from New York, to the riverside performance by a renowned violinist on the Arno. I didn't touch Whitmore money, not because I was overly generous, but because I knew they'd try to take control the moment they held the contract. At first, everything went smoothly. The family flew to Florence 2 days ahead of me, staying in the historic villa I had booked in full. I arrived later to finalize preparations, but really, it was to keep a deliberate distance. Nathaniel didn't question it. He was too busy having hour-long phone calls with someone named Sophie, whom he claimed was the company's new financial advisor. I had planned to let it go, truly. I thought I could survive one more week, finish the job, then head back to Seattle and hire a good attorney. But then, one morning he left his phone in the living room while he went to the spa with his father. A text came through, clearly displayed on the lock screen. "I can't take this anymore. When are you going to tell her?" The name underneath froze me in place. Brooke Delaney. Brooke wasn't a stranger. She was Nathaniel's ex-girlfriend from college, and the same woman Judith once said would have made the perfect daughter-in-law. I remember hearing her say that during a dinner 2 years ago when I accidentally overheard her on the phone. If he had married Brooke, we wouldn't have to worry about appearances. I hadn't intended to unlock the phone, but somehow my finger just swiped up, and when I saw the message thread, stretching from weeks ago to just last night, I knew there was nothing left to question. Brooke was pregnant. She had written, "I won't let the baby grow up in secret. You need to be honest with Jasmine. I've waited long enough, Nate. She deserves to know, if only for dignity's sake." I stood still for a long time, then quickly took photos of the entire conversation and emailed them to myself. I placed the phone back exactly where I found it, no trace. From that moment on, I knew I wouldn't confront them the usual way. I wouldn't cry. I wouldn't scream. I wouldn't beg. I would wait. I'd let them play their parts until the final act. That afternoon, I sat alone in the small office at the villa, pretending to review the itinerary. On my screen was the latest financial report for Whitmore Group, which I had accessed through a shared folder Nathaniel had forgotten to log out of. A new unsecured loan worth over $15 million, collateral, a parcel of land in Oregon, and shares in a Chicago subsidiary. Below that was an email from their in-house legal counsel, bluntly stating, "If cash flow doesn't improve next quarter, we'll need to consider asset liquidation to maintain solvency." The Whitmores were sinking, yet still parading a facade of extravagance. I saved all the documents to my personal drive. I wasn't sure how I'd use them, but instinct told me it was time to hold on to my ammunition. Judith might think I was just a girl from modest beginnings who could throw a good party. Nathaniel might think I'd stay quiet after learning he'd betrayed me. But they forgot one thing. I didn't marry into this family to be ornamental. I used to believe in love, in belonging, in grace. Not anymore. Now, I believe in justice. And I would reclaim everything, right in the place they planned to erase me, Judith's birthday celebration. That evening, Florence glowed like a living painting. La Luminara, a rooftop restaurant atop a boutique hotel with sweeping views of the Duomo, was the venue I had spent 3 months preparing for Judith's 70th birthday dinner. From hand-embroidered linens imported from France to the 7-course menu designed by a Michelin-starred chef, every detail had passed under my scrutiny. Not a speck of dust escaped me. I arrived about an hour early, wearing an ivory silk gown tailored just for the occasion. The restaurant staff greeted me with bows, several of them already familiar with me from my many walkthroughs. I did one final inspection, white peonies arranged exactly how Judith liked, soft lighting from vintage glass chandeliers, and chilled champagne waiting. Everything was perfect. Or so I thought. The Whitmore family arrived 15 minutes late, but no one seemed to care. Judith entered first, draped in white fur, chin high like the place belonged to her. Cassandra, my sister-in-law, gave the scene a once-over and smirked. "Not bad, Jasmine." Nathaniel followed behind, meeting my gaze and smiling. The smile I once thought was warm now felt cold, like a man well aware of the secret he was hiding. The guests quickly moved to the long table set like a royal banquet. I walked toward my seat, the one I had instructed staff to place next to Nathaniel's, like every important event before, but strangely, it was missing. No name card, no glass, no napkin, no chair. I stood there for a few seconds collecting myself. Waitstaff avoided my eyes. A few family members already seated glanced my way and quickly looked off, pretending to chat. Judith spoke, her tone as casual as ever. "Oh? Is something wrong, Jasmine?" I kept my voice calm. "It seems there's been a mistake. My seat isn't here." Cassandra shrugged. "Someone must have miscounted. There are 12 of us after all." And then, like a rehearsed line, Nathaniel chuckled. "Oops, I guess we miscounted." His laugh floated out lightly, as if it were a harmless joke. But the satisfaction in the family's eyes wasn't subtle. They had planned this. They chose tonight to do it, in front of friends, partners, relatives, in front of everyone who would remember the moment I was excluded from this opulent table, like someone who didn't belong. No one said anything more, no one offered me another seat, not a single person looked apologetic. I could feel the air grow heavy in my lungs, but I kept my expression still. I scanned the table, stopping at Nathaniel's face. He didn't blink, didn't apologize, just sat there, like he was observing my reaction in some kind of psychological experiment. I smiled, faint, almost unreal. "I see," I said, my voice low but carrying across the room. "So I'm no longer considered family." No one replied. A chilling silence stretched out like a taut wire. I turned, walking away from the table with my spine straight and my pride intact. No one stopped me, no one called out, and strangely that felt more freeing than heartbreaking. As I descended the marble stairs, I heard the string quartet begin the opening melody. The celebration had started. Without me. I crossed the grand hall, exited the restaurant and stopped by the Arno. The night breeze whispered through my hair, but my mind was sharp as ever. I opened my phone and logged into my company's event management platform. Every single contract, from the boat tour tomorrow to the private concert and castle gala in Tuscany, was under my control. I had placed the deposits. I had set the schedules. I had the power to cancel everything. They wanted to cut me out of the dinner table? Fine. I'd cut their entire dream week right out from under them. I moved quickly through the cobbled alleys of Florence, the sound of my heels steady on the cold stone. My heart pounded, not from hurt, the pain was gone. The moment they erased me from the party, I stopped being the Jasmine who tried to belong, who tolerated. I became Jasmine Cole, the event planner capable of creating a royal week, and powerful enough to dismantle it in under 30 minutes. I stopped at a small cafe facing Piazza della Signoria. My hand didn't tremble as I opened my phone. The fire inside me had turned to razor-sharp focus. First, an email to Stefano, the manager at Castello di Fiori, in Tuscany, where the Whitmores planned to host their weekend castle dinner. I attached all documents, confirmed my right to cancel, and requested a full refund to my company account within 24 hours. Then came a call to Serena, the coordinator for tomorrow's private food tour in Modena. I kept my tone light. Serena, change of plans. The family is canceling the tour, personal reasons. Please confirm the cancellation and refund. Serena didn't ask questions, just replied, I'm sorry to hear that, but I understand. Next was the Lake Como yacht service, the private villa in Chianti, the opera at Teatro Santa Cecilia that Judith had insisted I secure at all costs. A string of calls and emails flew out within 15 minutes. Payments, deposits, all of it coordinated through Aurora Events in my name. And now? I was retracting every last one. When I opened my banking app and saw the refunds begin to process back into my business account, I couldn't help but smile. I checked the time. Only 26 minutes had passed since I left La Luminara. There was still time. I pulled down the screen and opened a folder labeled Glass House, the name I gave the collection of secrets I had quietly gathered over the past 3 months. Leaked internal financial reports showing Whitmore Group had mortgaged properties in Oregon and Seattle to cover failed investments. Emails between Nathaniel and legal counsel, strategizing how to remove my name from joint assets smoothly. And of course the full message history with Brooke Delaney, the woman he was preparing to start a new life with after discarding me. I sent everything to my attorney in Boston with a single note. Only use if they try to sue. Then I opened the front camera, fixed my hair, applied a touch of gloss, because I knew what I had to do next. I returned to La Luminara not through the main entrance but the staff hallway I'd walked dozens of times during setup checks. Luca, the restaurant manager, spotted me in the kitchen. His face showed confusion. Signore Cole, is everything all right? I placed a thick envelope in his hand. Inside, the cancellation contracts and payment reversal confirmation. The Whitmore family will need another method of payment. I'm no longer guaranteeing this event. Luca glanced through the papers, his expression shifting from surprise to sympathy. I understand. Do you want me to inform them now? I nodded but raised a hand for 5 more minutes. Find me a discreet spot. I want to see how they react. Luca led me to a small balcony connected to the kitchen, where I could see the dinner table through a large glass window. I stood there, phone in hand, camera ready to capture whatever needed to be documented. Inside they were on the 3rd course. Judith was laughing loudly, her diamond necklace sparkling under the crystal lights. Nathaniel was chatting with the guest on his left, looking carefree. They had no idea what was coming. Luca stepped out, whispered something to the service assistant, then walked over to Nathaniel. I saw his expression shift from indifferent to confused. He unfolded the invoice Luca handed him, then glanced toward the back of the restaurant, as if looking for me. A murmur began to ripple across the table. Judith looked up, her expression irritated. What's going on? Luca replied gently, loud enough for the entire table to hear. I'm sorry, but the event sponsor has withdrawn. The restaurant requires full payment on site in order to continue service. Silence fell over the table. I saw Cassandra set down her glass and Thomas, Nathaniel's brother, pulled out his phone, probably calling an accountant. Faces shifted. The evening's glamour vanished, replaced by awkwardness, concern, and for the first time, in Judith's eyes, a flicker of panic. I lifted my phone and recorded the final moments, Nathaniel standing looking around until his eyes landed on the balcony. I didn't flinch. I wanted him to see. I sent a text. "Enjoy dinner. From now on you'll pay the price for your own choices." I turned off the screen and turned my back. They wanted me out of their dinner. So, I cleared the entire table for them. Inside La Luminara, the air thickened as smiles faded and discomfort spread like a thin veil. Judith set her utensils down with a chilling clink, her sharp eyes sweeping the room before locking onto the manager, who was calmly yet firmly explaining something. Nathaniel stood halfway up, tugging his phone from his inner jacket pocket. I stood behind the glass, composed. From my view, I could see every detail on their faces. Cassandra leaned toward her husband, lips pressed tight, cheeks flushing red. Thomas frowned, pulled out his wallet as a reflex, then set it down again, realizing how absurd this was. No one spoke. No one had a backup plan. Because they believed they had control over me. That's when I stepped off the balcony, quietly walking down the side hallway into the main area. Luca saw me and gave a small nod. The glass doors opened, and the sound of my heels echoed into the stunned silence of the dinner table. Everyone turned to look at me. The faces that once exuded joy and power now looked confused and shaken. Nathaniel stood frozen, phone in hand, eyes wide as he saw me approaching. I stopped in the center of the room, facing them like a crack that could no longer be hidden. Judith broke the silence first, her voice trembling slightly but still carrying that familiar superiority. "Jasmine, what are you doing? Do you realize the consequences of this?" I looked straight at her, my voice calm and strangely steady. "I know exactly what I'm doing, Judith, and the consequences you're worried about are the results of your own actions. And your family's." Cassandra jumped in, trying to salvage the moment with a sharply scolding tone. "This is a formal event, you're humiliating everyone here." I smirked. "Funny you'd mention humiliation considering just an hour ago, you were all in on the plan to publicly exclude me from this dinner. No chair, no name card, no invitation. Not a single place for me, the person who organized this entire week, with my time, effort, and company name." Judith quickly cut in, forcing a weak smile. "There must be a misunderstanding. There may have been a mix-up with the seating." I held up my phone, the screen glowing with a message thread between Judith and Nathaniel. The final message was Judith's confirmation to the restaurant. "She won't be staying. Only 12. No need to ask further." I handed the phone to Luca. He nodded in confirmation. I locked eyes with Nathaniel. He opened his mouth to say something, but I cut him off. "And you, the man I once believed would protect me from all this. The man I trusted enough not to check texts, not to read emails, not to question every word. You betrayed that trust. Deliberately, with a plan, with a whole future, waiting." I turned the phone toward him, displaying Brooke's message. "If you won't tell Jasmine, I will. I'm tired of being hidden like I'm the outsider." Nathaniel's face shifted from pale to ghost white. The napkin in his hand dropped to the floor. No one bent to pick it up. Judith clutched her necklace like she needed something to hold on to. Thomas leaned in and whispered something to Cassandra, his eyes wide with fear. I took a breath, then delivered my final words. "I'm no longer part of this family. And if anyone here thinks of coming after me legally, go ahead. I've sent all financial documents, contracts, texts, and emails to my attorney in Boston, including information about concealed assets, financial misconduct, and the unannounced divorce planning." Nathaniel whispered. "You, destroying everything." I looked at him one last time. "No, Nathaniel, you did that. I'm just turning on the lights where you tried to hide the shadows." I turned and walked away, the room frozen behind me. I heard Judith call out, but I didn't stop, no bowing, no regret. As the glass door shut behind me, I knew one thing for certain. They had prepared an evening to bury me in silence and shame. I chose to make it the beginning of my freedom. I left Florence the next morning, while the city still slept under a soft mist. The plane took off carrying me, a small suitcase, and a heavy but steady heart. No more looking back, no more hoping they'd understand. I no longer sought acceptance from a family that never truly welcomed me. When I landed at Logan Airport in Boston, I sent a single message to my lawyer. Activate the divorce file, begin proceedings today. Less than 48 hours later, Nathaniel was served the divorce papers, and he called, over and over. I didn't answer. By day 3, he showed up at the door of my new apartment, a small, sunlit unit in Beacon Hill, where I felt more at home than in any mansion I ever shared with him. He wore a wrinkled shirt, his hair a mess, no longer the polished image he always maintained. He raised both hands as if I were the only one who could save anything. Jasmine, please, I just want to talk, just 5 minutes. I looked at him through the cracked door. 5 minutes, but no lies, the moment you lie the door closes. He swallowed hard, then whispered. I was wrong. I've been so wrong. I shouldn't have let my mother control things like that. I shouldn't have let things with Brooke go so far. I lifted my chin and stared into his eyes. Go so far? You had a child with her. You let your whole family humiliate me publicly. You tried to write me out of your life with a staged performance. As if I were a background character in the Whitmore story. But I don't want to lose you, not like this. I paused for a second. Maybe a part of me had once waited to hear those words, but now? They meant nothing. The problem is, Nathaniel, you lost me a long time ago. You just didn't notice. I closed the door, quietly, no screaming, no tears. A few weeks later, the press picked up the story. It started as a small piece in the financial section of the Boston Ledger, questioning unusual cash flow at Whitmore Group. Then the Chronicle followed with a bold headline. The Whitmore Dynasty, a legacy on the brink. An official investigation by the Securities and Exchange Commission was launched after irregular financial documents were sent to regulators anonymously. I didn't need to sign it. The evidence spoke for itself. Judith was removed from her honorary chair positions at 3 major charities. Photos of her pursed lips at a fundraiser began circulating online, with thousands of disapproving comments. Cassandra and Thomas canceled their extended trip to the Riviera. Rumor had it several banks declined to extend their property loans. As for Nathaniel, he vanished from the social scene. A mutual acquaintance said he was temporarily staying with Brooke in Manhattan, avoiding all media attention. As for me, Aurora Events not only survived, it thrived. Clients who once hesitated because they thought I married rich, now came seeking me out, respecting my strength. They knew I was the woman who stood tall after scandal, who had built a royal week and dared to dismantle it when betrayed. One afternoon in June, while arranging flowers for a young couple's wedding on the shores of Lake Winnipesaukee, my phone rang. It was Nathaniel. I didn't pick up. He left a voicemail, his voice hoarse and tired. Jasmine, if you hear this, I just want to say I hope you found peace. I hope at least you feel like you won. I sat on a nearby bench, looking out at the calm lake reflecting the summer sky. For a moment I thought of everything: glamorous parties, cold nights in a house that never felt like mine, false praise and betrayal wrapped in silk. Then I smiled softly. Not because I won, but because I had found myself again. 1 year after I left Florence, Aurora Events hit a growth milestone I once only dreamed of. No flashy PR, no family name backing me, just a story people whispered at cocktail hours and corporate retreats. She's the one who pulled the entire event out from under the Whitmores, in the middle of the birthday dinner. No one said it aloud, but everyone knew, and strangely, it didn't exile me from high society. It made me a symbol of clarity and strength, the kind the wealthy secretly admire. I opened a second office in Chicago, then signed an exclusive contract with a boutique hotel chain on the West Coast. Clients didn't just come for beautiful events. They came because I knew how to draw the line. Even with the untouchable. Amidst the rush of work, a thin cream-colored envelope appeared at the Boston office front desk. Sender: Judith Whitmore. I opened it. A formal invitation in elegant font. Judith was asking me to plan a fundraiser for the Whitmore Children's Cancer Foundation, an autumn event in Newport, where she once barred me from voicing opinions in family meetings. Now she called me a respected event planner admired for professionalism and resilience. I folded the invitation without a second thought. My staff asked if we should reply by email. I just smiled. Sent her a bouquet of white peonies, with a handwritten card. Thank you for the invitation. Unfortunately, my calendar is full. The Whitmore story wasn't completely over. I heard Nathaniel married Brooke in a private ceremony in Brooklyn. No media, no fanfare. Their daughter Ella was born just 2 weeks after our divorce was finalized. I didn't send a gift. No congratulations, no glancing back. This spring I returned to Italy, not to plan someone else's birthday, but to coordinate the wedding of a famous American director and an Italian architect in Positano. The bride requested a timeless meets modern aesthetic, absolutely no family drama. I smiled and replied, "Then you've found the right person." I arrived in Florence a week early for prep. One slow afternoon I revisited La Luminara, the stage of that historic goodbye. The restaurant had changed a bit, new contemporary art, the string quartet now used electric violins, but the stone floors, warm lighting, and that little balcony were just the same. Luca, the restaurant manager, recognized me instantly. Jasmine Cole, I still remember that night. After that, half our VIP clients asked, "Was that really Jasmine?" I laughed. "I guess it became a kind of urban legend?" He nodded. "The kind everyone wants planning their next event." We toasted with a glass of Prosecco on the rooftop overlooking the glowing Arno. I relaxed, letting the string music drift through the breeze. No one excluded me this time. No judgment, no whispers. Just me, free in the world I chose to build. On the way back to my hotel, I received an email from a new client, the CEO of a major tech firm in San Francisco. Someone who had once canceled a meeting with me 3 years ago because she's Nathaniel Whitmore's wife. There must be bias. This time, he wrote, "I've heard your story. If you're still taking projects, I want Aurora Events to plan our 25th anniversary celebration. No one else, only you." I smiled and typed my reply. "I'm in, but this time, I sit at the head of the table." And I hit send, at peace. Not because I got revenge, but because I honored my own worth. From my story, I've realized one thing. No one gets to define your value but you. They tried to make me a shadow in their world, but it was by stepping out of that darkness that I found my own light. My silence was never weakness. It was preparation for the moment I rose with pride. If anyone out there is doubting themselves in the face of injustice, remember, you don't need to be accepted to be worthy. You just have to dare to walk away. What do you think about Jasmine's journey? What would you do if you were in her shoes? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to follow the channel for more heartfelt family stories and powerful life lessons.